Okay, hey y'all, Lee here, and it's November 28th, 29th of 2016, and I realized the other day that I haven't made an update in forever, so I thought I would do that now, since I'm not really doing anything else. Um, let's see, in general, as far as transition goes, I am pretty much done, I believe, at the moment. I've been doing a lot of bottom surgery contemplation, but I don't know if that's something I really want to do. So it's an option I'm keeping open and um, that I'm looking into, but it's not something that I really want to do as far as I'm concerned. Hormones have pretty much done it for me, and I'm pretty much where I want to be, so I'm good for the moment. Um, For my last video, I think one of my last videos I was talking about getting married, which is now that I realize it like 3 years ago. Um, we got married, absolutely no problems. We just celebrated 3 years at the beginning of this month, which was fantastic. Um, so, as far as that goes, everything's fine. um, my son is now. I know I mentioned in earlier videos that I have a son. He's almost 9. He'll be 9 next month. And, um, excuse me. A lot of. We're not having any, transition per se issues. We're not having, um, like, it's a lot of. I don't know how to word it exactly. Like, he knows I transitioned. He knows that at one point, I that I either identified or was identified as a female, and that through medicine, and that's all I tell him, I don't tell him anything else, that through that, then changes became apparent, and now I'm perceived as male, and that's all that's said about it. A lot more questions are being raised as to why my ex and I are no longer together, and essentially I just say that it didn't work out, that my ex and I were just too different and things didn't work, and that's how I leave it. Um, I don't feel that I need to bring in any of that drama. He has enough going on in his own life, and if my ex decides that that's something that he wants to put on him, then okay, that's his decision. Um, let's see. And I can tell I'm nervous, and I haven't done a video in a while because I'm doing all my nervous habits. Uh, let's see. As far as testosterone changes from 3 years ago, which I can't believe it's been that long till now, the only major thing that continues to happen is that I continue to get every time I shave it off, it seems to come thicker a little bit. So facial hair is pretty much stagnant. It hasn't. I mean, there's little bits here and there, and I'm patchy in a couple places, but beyond that, there's no real changes. The one change I really did notice was I was told in the beginning that my body was going to change, that my fat was going to redistribute, and I was like, okay, yeah, sure. But when I started off transition, in order to bind and do everything, to be able to hide my breasts really well, I had to wear oversized t-shirts, which in that case were a large because I could do a medium no problem. But when I put them on with the binder, I could see everything and I didn't want to, so I upped it to a large. But now I'm finding out at this stage that I really should have kept all the clothes that I gave away because now I've gotten broader and I've gone back into a large. Um, I've also noticed that when I gain weight now, I gain weight primarily in my stomach and not in my thighs or my hips or anywhere that's that I used to, but I now gain it in my stomach. So now, if I either overeat or don't work out or something of that nature, I end up having a beer belly, which looks terrible. But price you pay, I guess. Uh, but I also kind of want to talk about there was a time because of insurance and me being lazy and what have you that I didn't take my testosterone shots for approximately 2 to 3 months. It probably wasn't more than that, although it felt longer than that. During those 2 to 3 months, um, I had I was actually surprised because sex is a big part of my life. It's about a 2 to 3 times a day thing. Um, it's at least once to keep my sanity. It's 2 to 3 for pleasure. If I just want to actually enjoy the act and not have that gnawing need, um, but that's what it is now. But that's pretty much what it's been since I started testosterone. 2 to 3 times a day is where I can have connection sex and I can have enjoyable sex, but I need a minimum of one to get my head focused for the day. It became where it was rather than 2 to 3 times a day, it was once a week, and I was fine. And I didn't need any more. I didn't want any more, and it was just fine with me. Which now that I'm looking back, I'm like, I don't know how I did that, but but the drive wasn't there. And not only the drive for me not to have an orgasm, but for me not to want to be intimate with my wife. Um, so that was a really big issue, and nothing she got mad at me for. It was just something that over time I was like, oh, this is a thing and it's happening, and it really sucks for you, and I'm really sorry, because it was my testosterone, my shots, all things that I'm responsible for. Um, but in addition to that, I realized that I got really tired, and I don't mean like um, I work nights anyway. I work a 7 to 7 shift at night, so I'm at my work for 12 hours. And although it's not all that physical, it's extremely mentally taxing. And it's actually the same job that I've been at since I transitioned. So I have a nice long standing thing there, which is good. And but so I would come home after these 12-hour shifts and I would be absolutely exhausted. Nobody touched me, nobody looked at me. It came to where I was falling asleep in class, and I would fall asleep standing up or sitting upright. And it wasn't a huge um it was I didn't realize how much energy I had been losing until I got my testosterone shot back, and like the first day it was like, oh, back to like 6 to 8 hours of sleep, and I was just fine. Um my appetite also somewhat decreased, not a lot because my wife is an excellent cook and I like to eat, so but it became harder for me to lose that weight. My metabolism wasn't up, so I gained a lot of weight. So, pretty much what has been going on with my diet in order to try and fix um, some of those problems is my wife and I switched over to a paleo diet. And if you don't know what that is, that's no rice, no grains, no dairy, um, and it's essentially meat and vegetables and water. And surprisingly, she does very well off of that. like, um, like the diet in and of itself isn't that hard to follow, and I can have a lot of meat, and that makes me happy. So, really, in all things considered, things are good when it comes to that. So, let's see. Diet, son. So I haven't, obviously, since I haven't been on, said anything about the election. And I'm going to say it now because I may not have an opportunity to. I'm pissed that Donald Trump won. I'm really scared in a way that Donald Trump won. And I'm not scared so much because I think all these changes are going to happen because uh, he's an idiot, and I don't think he can get his head out of his ass long enough to really change anything. But I'm scared that our country is in such a state that one way or another he got elected. So that really kind of pissed me off. My wife and I thought for a while about moving, and we, well, didn't, for one, because my son is only almost 9, so, and I don't want to wreck those 9 years that I can have with him before he becomes this moody, grumpy, late teenager who knows everything, because I just don't want to do it. I don't want to miss that time with him. I want to keep him when he's like close and awesome. Um, but we were gonna move, and one of the things that I'm realizing over time is that I don't really want to move. I'm actually, um, I don't want to leave the country because, in a way, part of me thinks it's equivalent to running. Um, one of my big things has been over the last 6 to 8 months is learning about gay history, and I know this sounds in a way silly, but being part of the transgender community, our roots go back into gay history, very much so. And if you read um, from early gay history on, I mean, the only reason that a lot of people are able to transition and that transition is actually able to occur is because of science and because of medicine. And before that, what we had was that we had males being extremely effeminate and women being extremely masculine, and that's what it was seen from outside perspectives. Although the people who were um, engaging in these activities may have, wanted to pass or wanted to be seen as male or be accepted as male. It wasn't really until recently that those options were really open as far as actually changing our bodies. So it was an more external things that we were changing. So what's getting me is that there was an extremely large amount of people who went into and gave their lives and gave their time and gave, all these things in order for this movement to occur. And in a way, part of me thinks that abandoning the country is abandoning all that work that's been done. And personally, I don't appreciate, really, I wouldn't appreciate that if that was happening on a smaller scale. So I really don't think abandoning the country in general is a great idea. I would rather stay and rather fight. I don't really run from fights. I more just walk away if somebody's being stupid. So there you have it. But in that token, a lot of the people around my area are really scared. There's things about gender changes and name changes, and there's an event coming up in the beginning of December with a local transgender group who's going to sit down and everybody's going to work together on legal ways to change their name and change their gender, and loopholes and things that they found or things that were helpful for them as they went through their process. So although it's bringing people together in a really good way, and I'm really grateful for that, because I just think it was silly about how much, in a way, although the community, it says it's LGBT and we're all united for this common goal and woohoo, all the things, that there was a lot of, I guess, dissension in the ranks or division that was going on. It actually got to the point that there was one main local group that for years and years and years and years and years was, in order to be able to be a part of this group, you needed to be, and it was actually written in their bylaws for their group, was that you needed to be a bio male. Like, it actually said bio male on their thing. But that has recently changed. There is another group that's internationally recognized, I guess, and that also had the stipulation of needing to be a bio male. And that also has changed. So But for that group, you were allowed to be an associate member and you were allowed to participate in things, but you weren't allowed to be a member and have a vote and have any say. So a lot of people were like, I really don't want to participate in something that I have no say over. And rather than incorporating that step, the local group just said to hell with it, and they just got rid of it completely. So in a way, there's a lot more. There's a lot more in my area of unification, even though I am in the Bible bunk belt of all things. So, um, but as far as work, I think that's all I have to say about that. But as far as work is good. I've come out slowly to a few people, and somebody I think actually outed me not too long ago. So in some ways, I'm like, okay, at least that kind of saves me the problem of having to do that. And I think within my company that I work for, that there are enough. I'm just going to use the general overarching term queers. That if there are enough queers in it, that if we all found out that another one of us got fired, that probably if everybody walked out, the whole place would shut down. So it's not something they really want to bring up. And I am well past. State of Texas has a right to work state that you have to have 90 days in, and if you don't have 90 days in, then you get all this. Then you get fired on the spot, no explanation needed. However, since I am well past my 90 days, they now have to have a huge paper trail in order to get rid of me. So I'm very grateful for that. So really, essentially, it's just don't allow a paper trail to form. That's pretty much it. Let's see. I think since the last time I posted, I've done some overseas traveling, which was a lot of fun. I went to Australia. I was there for 3 weeks. Australia is a very different country, especially within the queer crowd. What's really unique about Australia, and it kind of made me feel kind of awkward, I guess, was that females are only allowed in specific bars at certain times. Like, some bars have the ability to put no females this time, from here to here. And even though it's not legally written per se, that they can make those females feel so uncomfortable that they're really not welcome there at certain times. But as a trans man, it was really interesting to have that male privilege to be able to go to an area that I didn't know, that nobody really, that not nobody, but very few people knew me, and that I could weave in and out of these things, and I could see all these things and experience all these things that my wife obviously couldn't. So that was really unique, actually. I know this was a really random update. It included a lot of crap. Partially was, I think, sorry, there's something on my screen. Partially, I think I just wanted to do an update to just show that I haven't fallen off the face of the earth. Sorry, it keeps popping up. And that, because I know one of the big things I did when I looked back through transition videos was to be like, oh, how they look this far out, how they look this far out, how they look this far out. And just to try and gauge my changes off of these other people, which is sort of silly because everybody's different. And I've seen people do amazing transitions in a short amount of time, and I've seen it take other people longer. So, but the one thing I can say is I'm still happy about my decisions, every single one of them. I wouldn't change any of them, especially hormones and top surgery. For me, that was absolutely amazing. Going off testosterone is something completely different. I really don't ever want to do that again. That was a horrible experience. But I am glad that in a weird way, I'm glad that I did it. So now that I know that if it happens again, I know what that feels like. So then I know what the problem is, so I can correct it. So, okay, so I'm gonna go, and hopefully, now that I've done my random bleh update, I'll do another one later on. So, have a good night, y'all.